Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Happy Model Mobula8 04. Please do not confuse this with previous iterations of the Happy Model Mobula8. This one has the FOV extender. That's one of the differentiators. I will link it down in the video description. As many of you know, I don't make fundamental software or hardware changes. In this particular case, I made both a software change as well as a hardware repair that I think is going to be something that we can learn from, and I'd like to share it in more detail. I've talked about it in other videos, and it has to do with the posts on pretty much all of these types of quads that have an HD VTX as well as the all-in-one. It's prop protected, it's made of plastic, and especially those that are 75mm frames and above. The flight controller is the Happy Model Crazy F405 HD with Express LRS built right into the flight controller. Express LRS antenna is this little wire right here. Motors continue to be 1103, 11,000 kV, and on those motors are GenFan Hurricane 2023 props. Note that the FOV adapter does come with an ND filter, but I did not use it in any of the flights. I cover the FOV adapter in a separate video, and I will link that down below. XT30 for your battery connection. It weighs 51.41 grams. I flew it mainly on these two batteries. With the Lava 550, it weighs 80.84 grams. With the G&B, it weighs 80.11 grams. It does come with an extra set of props, a screwdriver, a prop remover, and a few random screws. It does include the ND filter, that's an ND8, and it clips in to the front of the FOB adapter. It also comes with 2 sheets of stickers. Jumping into our slow cruisy flight, looking at the DVR footage, so no stabilization built in. I say this all the time just to make sure it's clear to everyone. I'm not trying to stabilize this footage. We will go into rocksteady or stabilized footage from the 04. You'll see it transitioned where all the text on screen disappears, and we'll make a nice smooth transition here at about the minute mark, and as I'm doing some viewing of Mr. Squirrel. There was also another one on the fence. You may have seen that one as well. Winds in this particular case are relatively low. It's 8 to 10 miles an hour, which for my area, that's pretty low. But every once in a while, it seems like the wind does kick up, and I can pick up some shimmer in the video system or the entire quad, so it doesn't get exactly completely stable footage in those winds when they do kick up. But it seems to be pretty good when the wind is relatively low, whether that's the actual 8-mile-an-hour marker or less. It's a little hard to say, you know, because they don't measure the wind at my backyard. They measure them at the weather stations out in the open. They have their own specifications for getting those measurements. But this is back when I had those sticks poking out of the yard, and Happy Model did retune this, or provided another tune after I received it and started flying it. So all the flight footage that you'll see is on the second PID tune that they sent, which is the last PID tune. They haven't sent me another PID tune since, and it did help quite a bit. Especially when I was freestyling the original PID tune, I was like, oh, it's kind of soft. It doesn't feel like a Happy Model quad. It didn't feel as responsive. It felt a little bit soft. Soft was the word I used when I was recording the flight audio, and that's kind of, I think, the best descriptor that I have for it. But I wanted to make sure, if you're not someone who does traditional freestyle, that I do show you some exploratory or flat, sort of slower cruisy flight. Get about 7 minutes and 15 seconds in this flight style on the Beta FPV Lava 550. The G&B got somewhere between 6 minutes and 50 seconds and almost 7 minutes on average across several different batteries. So that's the flight time that you can hopefully get if you use those same batteries and flying in the same style. But let's move on to my freestyle flight. Now, it's very common on a 2S HD based quad that when you plug in the battery, it takes a fair bit of the voltage down as to power up all the different components, specifically the HD components, in order to get everything running. So having a low battery on screen, that isn't a real strong indicator of an actual low battery. These batteries were all fully charged. I think sometimes I have not really talked about that enough, and it does take me a moment before I arm and take off. You know, I'm syncing the flight audio camera, and I'm kind of make sure I've got everything that I need lined up in order to create the video, or if I use the footage, create the video that is, as I already mentioned, but I want to make sure it's a strong point. All these flights were on the Happy Model second PID tune that they provided, and this freestyle flight is after I had done a frame swap, broke both frames of the Mobula8 that I had, as well as now this is after I've done the final repair, which I will be sharing in a more detailed manner with you in this video. So if you find that this is something that you think others, maybe you have a friend that likes this particular format and might be interested in this particular quad, maybe you want to share that with them, or tell them about the channel, what have you. Because I think this is something that we can apply not only to the Mobula8, but to the Mobula7, Beta FPVs, HD-based whoops as well. I think whenever you get that second layer and that heavier camera, generally heavier camera, up, you know, away from the base of the post, it creates leverage to where you don't even have to hit the camera or the canopy, and you're creating a lot of force for those posts to hold everything that's attached to them up, and it snaps them off right at the frame. And I've had discussions with both Beta FPV and Happy Model about this issue for quite a while, and I think in some ways they're kind of befuddled, as I have been, about an actual fix. But the repair I make, as clunky as it is, it's functional. It's just not something that I think they're willing to do at the factory when they're making these particular quads. I think they're looking for a cleaner solution to this problem. 12 to 14 millimeter screws would probably be a solution, but I have ordered what has been listed on AliExpress 12 millimeter screws 4 times, and every time it's been 10 millimeter screws. Even when it says 12 millimeters on the bag, it's 10 millimeter screws. So that won't get us all the way down through the 2 layers, the canopy, the 2 layers of the PCBs, the VTX, and the flight controller, all the way down to the meat of the frame, which is essentially what I'm going to show you in detail when we get back to the repair. But do know that this flight is after the repair, and you can see there we had another crash. Now, a similar crash to that, and I'll show my first 2 crashes that I had where I broke the post in both cases because I had no reinforcement or anything. One is a fairly modest crash, I would say, in a very similar manner to that crash I just showed you, and one is more severe, but I still would expect it to survive. But in my particular case, on the second crash, I still sheared off 2 more posts, but I've had plenty of crashes since then with the screws through the post, and that has solved that issue as far as my crashes go to date with this. Of course, when it comes to plastic frames, whoop frames, yeah, I wouldn't advise that you fly them outside when it's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that is. But that is a choice you can make for yourself. Plastics get cold, they get brittle, they don't hold up the same. So if it's warmer, as it is in this particular case, 47 degrees, you're better off in many cases where you're freestyling these particular plastic frames. So general advice doesn't strictly apply to just this review or this quad, but I don't think I've done a very good job as I lay in bed thinking about these things, about why is this still happening. We're seeing this, you know, after several years now, but so I'm going to share it in more detail. But we're going to come in to our flight. I ran it a little bit long. We got 4 minutes and 9 seconds on the flight time. And you can see our battery on our average cell voltage is a little bit low at 3.42. So one of the changes I made was I changed the motor rotation. So I changed the props where they sit on the quad, as well as the direction that the props spin. So that's motor rotation, ESC control. And yeah, it had yaw washout when I originally got it, or props out. That was something that I also shared with Happy Model. But the first thing I thought of was, well, we know that when we see this yaw washout, we can reverse the rotation to props in, and it oftentimes solves it. And that's what I did. And here we're going to get into my first crash. This is no repair. This is fresh. Hit that little branch, flop down. Yeah, I broke 2 posts on that crash. And so I'm going to fly it back in. And at first, I don't see any extra vibrations or anything. But after I bring it in, I get my little camera out to film myself taking a look at the quad. And yep, sure enough, yeah, 2 broken posts, one front, 1 side post. Steered them right off at the base of the frame. So I did a frame swap, and I head back out. I'm just kind of working on this move that you've seen now in a couple of videos where I pop over the canopy. It's kind of a fun little thing. I think I'd prefer it when it's in the spring, so I have more leaves on that Japanese maple. This is going to be a hard crash right into that air conditioner. Yeah, winged it. But again, I didn't hit the camera. I hit the frame. And now we've got all sorts of vibrations because, again, I've broken 2 more posts. That one you might say, well, that was a pretty bad crash. I would expect something to break. But as you can see there, I'm not wearing gloves, so it's not terrible cold either. It was in the 50s. So before we get into the live review, I just want to point out that these posts don't go all the way through both layers. These posts are not even really designed to have a second layer. So you can see we barely have a little bit of that post sticking above the first rubber grommet, and then we got to go through the second one, and then we've got to get our screw down through the canopy through the VTX grommet down into the post. So that's the reason for the repair. That's a lot of distance to cover, and it only has that tiny couple of millimeters of plastic connecting the post to the frame. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the repair. And I have made a few mistakes in my video creation process, so I've actually done the repair twice. You can kind of see where we're headed, and I've kind of talked about it. I didn't want to hide it in the video, but we're going to do it on a post that has not been broken on this particular frame. This is my original first frame. I have recorded me doing this repair twice, doing amateur YouTube hour here. But the basic source of tools you need, I used a paper clip, some matches, and M1.4 8mm screws. I have two different kinds that are out. I have pan heads that are out here, pan heads that are a little bit bigger. So you can tell that that has a little more of a substantial head on it. But the one that we use in the bottom of the frame, that's for the top going down through the canopy, top down. The one that we use in the bottom of the frame got a smaller head. So these are the two heads. You can tell that definitely this one is quite a bit smaller. And the small one is important because if you look at where I've done this repair already, you don't have enough space where the hole of the post is and this edge of the frame to use the larger headed screw. You got to get the smaller headed screw to go from the bottom side. And that's the important side because that's the part that attaches it to the meat of the frame. And that's essentially what this is to accomplish for not only this frame, but others like it. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you, like, if you get a Mobula8 or you have a Meteor 85 or 75 and you're having this problem with the post breaking, this post over here is already kind of weak. So what we're going to do is we're going to snip it off, and this is how I would suggest doing this repair. I've done this repair without taking the post off, without snipping it off, and it's tedious, and you're very likely to mess it up because when you have to, estimate where the hole is. I mean, look at the size of the hole. This barely fits in there, and you have to nail that hole pretty much when you get it hot and go through there. I tried it already once on this frame, and as you can see, I screwed it up, and then I had to use a larger pan head screw. I got the hole too far to the outside of the frame to this side, so then I had to heat it back up and then ream a little bit of the frame out inside in order for the screw to go through the post when it was attached. So my recommendation is to do what we're going to do here, which is to snip it off. Make sure you don't lose your post. That's important. We're going to get our match out. This is a heat retardant mat. I'm not too worried about the match. I just don't want to heat up the camera that is recording. This is a little bit more cumbersome as I've tried to do this repair a few times on camera. I usually wear my head magnifier, and I have all sorts of space to get my head done and eyes close to the repair that I'm actually trying to do. So because we can see right where the post was, we can actually line it up and then just go right through. From that point, we take our small headed screw and we go through the bottom. Again, I can't hardly see. I don't have good enough lighting, but I think I missed the hole. Be patient with me here. All right, I got it going. I'm just putting my finger on the other side so I can feel it come through. I just want to line it up. And where did the post go that I just snipped off? Don't lose the post. I said that openly. And then, okay, here we go. So you want to figure out which side you clipped. Pretty certain I clipped this end because you can kind of see where the pinch was down there at the bottom. So I'm going to put that down on this screw. You kind of have to feel, or if you've got head magnifiers that you wear, you might be able to see them. Or if you've just got really good eyes, you might be able to see it. I just used the bit end of this screwdriver because it's easier to maintain. Put my post down on here. Now I'm not terribly concerned about getting it down flat on the frame. We'll take care of that here in just a minute. I just want to get it started on screw. And this, I'm having a terrible time. This is a tedious thing. This is part of our frustration with micros, is they're small. They can be difficult to work on. I'm going to take this screw just a touch more through. I don't have enough sticking out. And you don't want to, you know, take your time making that hole. You want to get in and out. Because if you take too long, then you could be reaming out the frame and creating an actual problem for the repair of actually being as successful as possible. Okay, let's see if I can get it started. Dang it, frame keeps twisting on me. I don't have it. Maybe that there's probably other ways to doing this, but I'm going to stick with what I've done a few times now. Different posts. I've got all 4 posts on this little guy firmed up with screws. So now I'm just going to screw it down, holding the post with my little needle nose until I get the head all the way down to the frame on the bottom side. Feel it's getting tough. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you've got the post as far down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to back the screw out, allowing the post to turn. As I back the screw out, and I'll feel it get real stiff and tight. That's what I'm looking for. And then I'll grab a hold of the post with my tool again. And then you can see the screw head's kind of sticking out there, hopefully. Then I'll get the screw all the way down and we'll have the post nice and flush with the frame. You can use glues or adhesives that you might have to do this as well. But I tried glue at first and I just found it created a level of cumbersome that I wasn't willing to continue to deal with. And you can even see in that particular case, it's a little bit angled. I got my other repairs nice and straight. That one's angled. Not a big deal. You know, we have the rubber grommets inside. It'll give us a little bit of forbearance when it comes to being precise up and down. Of course, we've got the screw in it now, and you can see my screw didn't even go all the way through. So I would normally tighten that all the way up, and then I just use a little finger pressure to make that up. For right now, it looks like I'm butting up against the side of the frame, so I need to grab a hold of it. That's the premise. But then you'd put all your components back on the board with the rubber grommets and everything, and then you would take your pan head screw, if you chose to go with the pan head screw on the top side, and go down through your canopy, and then you would have enough length with the 8mm screw to get into the post as well. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating a metal stem inside the canopy all the way down through the meat of the frame, which makes it very, very rigid. I've had subsequent crashes since doing this repair, and I haven't had any more problems. So that's something I would recommend doing for anybody who flies this format or similar sizes of format. And I did have several more flights because I don't just fly enough to get flight footage for purposes of making a video. I continue to fly. I continue to try to learn and experience different things about all these different quads. And eventually I did end up with some additional damage that I have to report, which is right behind the screw on this FOV adjustment. It did break. There is a potential that I could glue that to fix it. Let me get one out so I can show you where the breakage is. So this is the FOV extender, and it broke right in this crease. And so this piece from about where I'm kind of drawing this way is mostly detached, so it won't hold steady in there anymore. So I get vibrations, and you can see that the screw is still in. It's still holding onto that piece, but that piece is pretty much broken all the way off. So I would need to either swap it or look at doing a repair. I don't know this material for certain. Maybe some of you can. It's not a plastic mold. A Happy Model did say that they are looking at doing this in a plastic mold. This might be some sort of resin print, but it doesn't look like it really has layers. So I'm just not much of a printer. I don't really tinker with that too much. So maybe some of you can identify the material that they've used. It did survive a number of crashes, and that's the one concern I do have about the Mobula8 if you want to go out and freestyle it. One, I would highly recommend you make the repairs with what I've showed you using 8mm 1.4 screws from both the top and the bottom. And then you do have to be concerned that because you do have the nose of this camera quite exposed, that you know, you could go through a few of these if having that field of view expansion is really important for you. It is for me, because with the normal field of view of the O4, I just don't enjoy flying it very much. I find everything is up close. I've had people tell me it's a skill issue or an adjustment issue, a vision issue. I've been flying these O4 since they came out, and I have always felt like everything is coming at me much more faster than it does typically, and I don't enjoy the flights nearly as much. So these field of view extenders from Happy Model and Flywoo, they do enhance my enjoyment and relaxation for the flights. So that's the other part of this that I'm concerned about, the durability. As I oftentimes do, I end with price point. Now, there are a lot of other discussion points out there. If you are following the news closely, that it seems as though the U.S. government has essentially taken at least a step, or if not an outright stoppage to us getting stuff from foreign countries, any country outside of the U.S., into the U.S. Now, whether that's actually true and that actually can be implemented, or if its intent is to scaremonger or something, I don't know. Only the people that wrote that would know. I am more in line, if you're wanting to know my perspective on that FCC issue, I am more in line with Joshua Bardwell's video than any other video I've seen. I haven't seen a ton, but I am kind of like, calmer heads will prevail. Let's wait and see. Let's see what happens. This could be another thing with the RFID that we thought was going to end the hobby and the sky was falling, but it turns out not so much. So I'm trying to stay optimistic. I love FPV. I love to fly. I hope that this all will pass and we will continue to enjoy our fun hobby. But if you are wondering about the price point, I didn't find very many places this was listed, and I thought it was out. But I see it on AliExpress for $235. I think that is with the O4 and Express LRS. So, with O4, the price, there could be more cost if you're getting that from AliExpress into the US for tariffs. Maybe they miss it. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I've paid quite a few tariffs over the last year. And every once in a while a package will show up and I won't have to have paid a tariff. Why? Again, 2025 feels like a very confusing year in FPV and specifically US politics. Really a lot of questions about where we're headed and how we're going to get there, if we want to get there, or even if we want to get there. Yeah, it's been a very head-spinning year. But I choose, and I like to stay positive. And I hope this all will pass and we'll be able to get our fun quads and continue to fly. If you are looking for this, I will link wherever I can find it down in the video description. I will find screws, both the larger head and the smaller head screws, the 8mm 1.4, and I'll link them down in the video description. But you can just, as always, use your Google and go find the various products that I've mentioned in this video, and you can purchase them wherever you want to. You don't have to use my links. They're there for your convenience. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Happy Model Mobula8 O4, remember, O4 with the FOV extender on it is important. Please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.